I just wanted to share my experience with this in case anyone else is considering it. Because robot vacuums can be weirdly hit or miss depending on your home, your floors, and how much patience you have for apps. At a basic level, this is a robot vacuum that drives itself around, maps your place, and tries to keep the daily dust and crumbs under control without you thinking about it too much. I think it makes the most sense for someone who wants help staying on top of everyday mess, especially in high-traffic areas like an entryway, kitchen, and living room. If you are expecting it to replace a full deep clean, or you have a house that is constantly covered in toys, cords, and random clutter, it is still useful, but you are going to do a little prep. What makes this one interesting to me is the way it navigates. Instead of just bouncing around, it builds a map and cleans in a more organized pattern. In my place, that difference matters because I can tell when a robot is wandering versus actually covering the room. With this one, once it learned the layout, it started moving in cleaner lines, and it felt more consistent day to day. Physically, it looks like what you expect. A low, round robot with a raised section on top for navigation and a dock that sits against the wall. The build feels fine for something that is going to bump into furniture legs on purpose. It is mostly plastic, but it has handled the normal daily knocks without anything rattling loose. The height is low enough that it gets under my couch and a couple of cabinets that my upright vacuum does not reach unless I move furniture. That is one of the main reasons I keep using a robot vacuum at all. It grabs the dust that collects in those forgotten zones. Setup was pretty normal. I plugged in the dock, put it where it had a little breathing room, and let it charge. Pairing it with the app took me a few minutes. The main thing is being patient during the first run, because that is when it is learning. I let it do a full pass of my main level without me messing with it too much, and after that the map made a lot more sense. Day-to-day use is where it either becomes part of your routine or it becomes another gadget you ignore. For me, it has been easy to keep in rotation. Most days I just start a run while I am doing something else, like dishes or answering emails, and I pick up a couple of obvious things off the floor first. The robot is not magical. If you leave phone chargers stretched across the hallway, it will eventually find them. It does a decent job avoiding big obstacles, but smaller loose items can still cause a stop. In real-life cleaning, my biggest test is always the entry area. I track in little bits of grit, plus crumbs somehow appear even when I swear nobody was eating over there. On hardwood and tile, it picks up the visible stuff well. I can tell because the floor stops having that sandy feeling under my feet. On carpet, it is more of a maintenance clean. It keeps things from building up, but I still do a normal vacuum for a deeper pass. I also tested it in the kitchen after cooking. Not a disaster zone, but the usual dry bits that fall near the stove and sink. It handled that kind of mess well, especially along the edges where crumbs like to hide. Edge cleaning is never perfect with round robots, but it gets close enough that I am not constantly seeing lines of debris hugging the baseboards. Now, the navigation and mapping are the parts I care about most, because that determines whether it wastes time. After it learned my place, it stopped doing the confused wandering thing and started cleaning rooms in a way that felt repeatable. It also helped that I could use the map in the app to guide it. If I noticed the hallway needed attention, I could send it there without hoping it would eventually get the hint. The app is mostly straightforward once you get used to it. I use it to start cleaning when I am not in the room, and I like being able to choose specific areas. Scheduling is useful too. I do not run it in the middle of the night because it is still a vacuum and I can hear it, but running it during the day a few times a week keeps things under control. The map editing is helpful, but I will be honest, you may have to tweak things. My map was not perfect right away, and I had to let it run a couple more times before everything looked right. One thing I paid attention to was how it handles thresholds and transitions. In my home, there is a slight lip between rooms. It gets over it most of the time. When it does not, it is usually because I have a rug edge folded or something like that. On rugs, it climbs on and off fine if the rug is not too thick. If you have very tall shag rugs, that is where robot vacuums tend to struggle in general. Battery behavior has been reliable for me. It cleans for a while, and when it needs to recharge, it heads back to the dock. The part I care about is whether it can actually find the dock without drama. In my testing, it usually does. If I moved chairs around and created a weird maze, it took longer, but it still figured it out. I do not babysit it, which is kind of the whole point. Maintenance is simple, but you do have to do it. The dust bin fills faster than you think if you have pet hair or long hair in the house. I empty it pretty often, because if you let it pack down, suction drops and the robot starts leaving behind little trails. I also check the brush for wrapped hair. That is not a WYZE-specific problem. That is just robot vacuum life. If you stay on top of it, performance stays consistent. If you ignore it for weeks, you will think the vacuum got worse, when really it is just clogged with your household. Let me talk about a few limitations I noticed. It is not great with cables. It is better than some random bump around robots I have used, but if a thin cord is lying in the open, it can still get caught. It also does not love extremely tight spaces with a lot of chair legs. It will try, but it can waste time doing little turns. And like most robot vacuums, it is not going to clean corners the way a full-size vacuum nozzle can. It gets close and it helps, but corners still need a manual pass once in a while. Noise is what I would call normal vacuum noise, just smaller and steadier. I can take a call in another room, but I would not film audio next to it. I usually run it when I am doing other things, so it does not bother me. Overall, after living with it, the WYZE Robot Vacuum has been a practical helper for keeping the floors from getting ahead of me. The mapping and the consistent pathing are the main reasons I keep using it. It is not a replacement for deep cleaning, and it still needs basic prep and maintenance. But for everyday crumbs, dust, and hair, it does the job in a way that fits into real life. If you have been thinking about getting a robot vacuum, and you mainly want something to handle the routine floor mess so you do not have to vacuum as often, this kind of setup makes sense. If your home is cluttered at floor level or you want perfect corner cleaning, you will still be doing some manual work. If you have any questions about how it handled a specific type of floor or a specific situation in a home, leave a comment and I will try to help. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews like this, and thank you for watching.